Chapter 3 Leading Teams. Based on Thompson, Making the Team, 6th edition. Welcome back to Mastering MHAMBA, the channel dedicated to helping healthcare and business leaders build strong, effective teams. Today we are exploring Chapter 3, Leading Teams, adapted from Leigh L. Thompson's Making the Team. Guide for Managers, 6th edition, published by Pearson Education. This chapter examines what leadership truly means beyond titles, beyond authority, and into the realm of influence, empowerment, and team success. Learning objectives. In this lesson, you will learn: first is the distinction between leadership and management. Second is the leader's mindset, how effective leaders see the world. Third is the leadership paradox and why teams need leaders but resist control. Fourth is the major leadership theories, including trait theory, incremental theory, and situational leadership factors. Fifth is leadership styles and when to use each. Sixth is how leaders influence teams through mood, expectations, and prototypes. Seventh is how leader-member relationships form through LMX. Eighth is how power and influence shape leadership effectiveness. And ninth is how empowerment and participative management transform team performance. Uber Hackathon Story. We begin with a story from Uber's early days. During a company vacation, a small group of engineers held an informal hackathon and created the prototype for Uber events without budget, without permission, and outside the normal organizational structure. This innovation happened because Uber's leadership encouraged autonomy, experimentation, and entrepreneurship. It reminds us that leadership isn't always about directing. Sometimes it's about creating the environment where greatness can emerge. Leadership versus management. Management and leadership are not the same. Management is a function, planning, budgeting, scheduling, evaluating, and coordinating. But leadership is a relationship, influencing, motivating, coaching, and building trust. People follow managers because they must. People follow leaders because they want to. Great leadership begins with understanding people, purpose, and performance, not just processes, the leader's point of view. Effective leaders see what needs to be done before anyone else notices the gap. They understand the deeper organizational forces that influence behavior, culture, incentives, politics, and resources. They motivate people toward improvement by clarifying purpose and aligning effort. Most importantly, leaders take action instead of waiting for perfect conditions. Leadership begins with perspective and initiative. Leadership paradox. Here's the paradox. Teams need leaders, yet the presence of a leader can threaten autonomy. A command and control style can stifle participation and ownership. However, research shows that participative leadership, where members have input and autonomy, leads to better service, fewer errors, and lower burnout. The best leaders coordinate, motivate, and resolve conflicts while still empowering their team to contribute meaningfully. Are leaders born or made? Leadership research centers on a key question. Are leaders born or are they made? Two major theories address this, the entity theory and the incremental theory. Entity theory, trait theory. The entity theory or trait theory argues that leadership is innate. Some traits are indeed linked to leadership emergence. General mental ability, extroversion, conscientiousness, openness, and people with dominant or narcissistic personalities often rise, though not always effectively. But trait theory ignores the powerful effects of learning, experience, and environment. Incremental theory, leadership learned. The incremental theory argues that leadership can be learned. Leadership develops through experience, coaching, mentoring, and deliberate practice. Incremental leaders believe in people's ability to grow, and their teams perform better because of it. For MHA and MBA professionals, this perspective is essential. Leadership is a skill, not a birthright. Gender and leadership. Gender also plays an important role in how leadership is perceived. Research shows that men tend to over-emerge as leaders. They are more often selected or assumed to be leaders, even when their effectiveness is not higher. Women, on average, demonstrate more democratic and transformational leadership, which is strongly linked to positive team outcomes. Yet women often face penalties when they display assertive or agentic leadership behaviors, because these violate outdated gender expectations. Effective leaders recognize these biases and ensure leadership potential is evaluated fairly and inclusively. Situational leadership factors. Leadership is shaped by context. For instance, seating arrangements influence who is perceived as the leader. Teams with randomly selected leaders sometimes perform better because the leader relies more on team input. Incremental leaders also shape the environment, not just the team, a concept called bidirectional leadership. Leadership is always influenced by situation and context. Leadership styles overview. Leaders use different styles depending on tasks and team needs. Major styles include task-oriented, person-oriented, team leadership, autocratic, democratic, shared leadership, transactional leadership, and transformational leadership. Task-oriented leadership. Task-oriented leaders focus on productivity, clarity, and efficiency. They set goals, establish timelines, and ensure tasks get done. Strength, speed, and structure. Risks: burnout, rigidity, or reduced morale if overused. Person-oriented leadership. Person-oriented leaders focus on relationships, morale, and well-being. They listen, support, and empower team members. Strengths: psychological safety and loyalty. Risks: potential lack of accountability if not balanced with task focus. Team leadership ideal. The most effective leaders combine both task and relationship focus. This is team leadership. These leaders ensure performance while building trust and collaboration. This style is ideal in both healthcare and business settings because it blends results with humanity. Transactional versus transformational leadership. Transactional leadership is based on rewards and consequences. You perform, you're rewarded. It emphasizes structure and stability. Transformational leadership inspires people to transcend self-interest for a shared mission. Transformational leadership increases trust, performance, innovation, and engagement. Psychological contract. Transactional leadership is grounded in a psychological contract, an unwritten belief that if team members perform well, leaders will reward them fairly. When this contract is honored, trust stays strong. But when leaders break it, motivation and engagement decline rapidly. Transformational leadership goes beyond this contract by inspiring deeper commitment. Transformational leadership behaviors. Transformational leaders practice charisma, intellectual stimulation, individualized consideration. Self-sacrifice enhances commitment and team cohesion. But charisma can also be misused, the dark side of transformational leadership. Autocratic versus democratic versus shared leadership. Autocratic leaders centralize power, good for emergencies. Democratic leaders share power, good for long-term development. Shared leadership distributes influence across the team, ideal for complex and professional environments like healthcare. Mood contagion model. Leaders transmit their mood to the team. Positive mood improves coordination, creativity, and energy. Negative mood drains morale and effort. Emotional presence is a form of leadership. Implicit leadership theories. Teams have mental templates of what a leader should look like. Appointed leaders succeed through decisiveness and empathy. Elected leaders succeed through appearance, confidence, and kindness. These subconscious expectations influence how leaders are evaluated. Prototypicality. Teams prefer leaders who reflect their own identity, known as prototypical leaders. But creative, unconventional leaders may be judged as less leader-like, even when their ideas are superior. Effectiveness and familiarity are not the same. Leader-member exchange, LMX. LMX explains how leaders build different relationships with different members. High LMX members receive trust, support, and opportunity. Low LMX members receive less access and may feel excluded. Benefits: higher performance and commitment. Risks: resentment, unfairness, and reduced coordination. Sources of power. Leaders draw power from multiple sources. Legitimate power, reward power. Coercive power, expert power. Referent likability, power. Informational power, network power. Power is a resource, not an identity. Power distance. Power distance describes how comfortable people are with unequal power. Teams perform best when leaders and members share similar expectations about authority and decision making. Using power wisely, leaders can misuse power in three ways. domination, controlling everything. Abdication, avoiding leadership. Resource management, using influence only in areas where they add value. This last approach leads to the best team outcomes. Overuse of power can reduce empathy, increase risk taking, and hinder communication. Empowerment. Empowering leadership gives teams autonomy, voice, and responsibility. Empowerment increases creativity, trust, ownership, and collaboration. It requires supportive culture, resources, and psychological safety. Empowerment continuum. Empowerment exists on a continuum. Level 1, teams execute assigned tasks. Level 2, teams provide suggestions. Level 3, teams make decisions independently. Level 4, teams influence strategy and outcomes. When people experience powerlessness, especially in rigid bureaucracies, burnout, cynicism, and even depressive symptoms increase. Empowerment is essential for team well-being. Approaches to participation. Leaders can foster participation through task delegation, suggestion systems, distributed expertise, job enrichment, organizational involvement. These approaches increase engagement and performance. Bureaucracy versus commitment organizations. Bureaucratic organizations rely on hierarchy, rules, and control. Commitment organizations rely on empowerment, shared decision making, and flattened structures. Commitment cultures foster innovation and collaboration. The iron cage. Some organizations get trapped in the iron cage, rigid rules and procedures that stifle creativity and autonomy. Leaders must actively oppose this slide into bureaucracy by maintaining flexibility, empowerment, and trust. Leadership is influence, structure, and trust. Effective leaders see clearly, act intentionally, and empower others. They use power wisely, build strong relationships, and create environments where teams can thrive. In healthcare and business, these skills are essential for performance, innovation, and long-term success. This video is adapted from Leigh L. Thompson's Making the Team, a guide for managers, 6th edition, Pearson Education. Thank you for watching this Mastering MHA chapter on leading teams. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more graduate level leadership content.